Hello and welcome to The Wire. I'm introducing you to my friends Coralie here and Charlene here, who are joining us live on The Wire. Very nice to have some faces here, though. Girls, feel free to turn them off. If you'd rather, be watching and listening and not having your face on the recording, you're very welcome to. Here comes Sophie Ray. Do you know Sophie Ray?
Yes, she's our chair.
She's looking very relaxed there. No, that's a photo, isn't it? Hello, Sophie Ray. Good to have you here.
Hi, my apologies. I've been completely hopeless in finding the link.
Never completely hopeless. Just mildly. Yes, it's all good. Don't worry at all. We're very happy to have you here. And we are just going to welcome people as they arrive, and we are recording this for the people who are having that kind of a day. So if you're having that kind of a day and you're watching the recording, good for you. This is a good one. We have in the past run some risk management ones, but it's the distant past now. Like, it's over a year and a half ago. So we've got all different clients now. And so it's worthwhile having another yarn about risk management and the requirements for the service excellence success. So Marie Davidson is my name, and I'm your happy director at Highwire and one of the assessors. I'm not assessing your organisation or all those lovelies that have joined us here today, but it will be, is it Kay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely Kay. Well, that's good. Kay's usually here. I hope she hasn't forgotten about change start time, but anyway, there's always a risk, isn't it? When you change something, that people are going to take a while to get their head around the change. Risk management. I'm so very happy to have the board members here. Because it is, risk management is a function that sits with the board. If we were going to assign accountability and responsibility for it, that's where it sits. It's governance function. So it's fabulous to have you here and to see a team that are sharing it, obviously. I'd like to just acknowledge that I am on beautiful Biripi country in Port Macquarie, and I like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, emerging. Thank them for the beautiful connection that I get to make with their culture here, and to acknowledge the diversity of Aboriginal culture right across New South Wales, and also the country that you're joining us from. If you'd like to acknowledge now, that would be great. You acknowledging anyone there, Coralie? Custodian?
Yes. So I'm actually in Dharawal country, and Charlene and Sophie are in the Yuin country. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. And just want to acknowledge you taking the time as well to be here and be doing this learning with us. Risk management. It is the one area of the Australian Service Excellence Standards where we most often see a gap. Right? We don't look for it, but we definitely see that that's where the risk area is. It's in the risk standard. And that's generally because it's a bit underbaked in terms of what the standard requires. So that's not to say that organisations are not doing anything. It's just that this standard in particular is quite prescriptive about what it needs to see. And so when we're assessing an organisation, we're pretty clear about what we need to see. So we should be talking about that. So we're going to talk today about what is a risk, right? 101, get on the same page about that. What do you think your top 3 risks are? Because I was thinking there'd be a lot of commonality across your organisations about the top 3, like the big ones. What is a system for managing risk? Because that is what the standard requires. And that's quite different from just saying, have you got a risk plan? A system around something, what would that look like? So what are we looking for when we're looking for a system? I'm going to take you through a bit of systems thinking, and then we're going to go through the eight indicators that are within 2.4, the risk management standard. So there's 8 specific things that you need to show that you're doing. And you know what? Even if you weren't going for service excellence, even if you were thinking about what does a system for managing risk look like, this sort of 1 hour of power will be helpful. So what is a risk? Pairing it right back. A risk is anything that could impact on you achieving your organisational objectives. So every organisation has a set of objectives, of things that they exist to do. Generally described where? Where would your organisational objectives be described? There's some pretty high level guiding documents where we would generally see. Where would we see them?
Constitution or sometimes in the vision, mission statements, those sorts of things.
Perfect.
And strategic plan.
Exactly. Right. You got it there, the trifecta. That's exactly where we would see the organisation's objectives. And so a risk is anything that would impact on you being able to achieve those objectives. Now, risk comes in the form of something bad could happen, right? So there's all that category, but there's also risk can come in the form of an opportunity. And this is sometimes organisations don't realise this. They're looking around for all the sort of the things that could sort of, knock them over and knock them out. And sometimes the risk can come in the form of a new partnership, some new money, right? So we must also look for risk in the opportunity as well. So when we're looking at the sorts of things that could impact on our objectives, sometimes getting a lot of money that has to be spent quickly, you might think, we won the tender, we got the grant, and then you can spend it. You might have experienced that. I know lots of organisations that are quickly now trying to get rid of money. I had some thrown into my account the other day. I didn't even know where it had come from. And someone said, we just have to give it to you because you could do some more work with us. And I thought, what an approach that is, right? So there's pros and cons about that. But yeah, over and under spending, things like that, when you get grants. So I've seen that be difficult for lots of organisations to manage. And new partners, people knock on your door and say, hey, you want to partner with us? We want to do this and let's do it jointly. And you think, this is fantastic. And then they turned out to be like the worst partner ever. So there's risks there. So the way to approach this is broad about the sorts of things that could harm you, that could bring you undone, stop you from achieving your objectives. And that generally requires a lot of people around the table. So no one person, I don't think, should ever sit down and develop a risk plan. Here comes lovely Denise. A risk plan should be developed with many perspectives around it. Like staff, lots of stakeholders, even your funder, definitely your governance, everyone will have a perspective on risk. Yes. Let's think now about what are the top three. What do you think they are? You can type to me in the chat or you can just yell it out. I just want to welcome Denise, I think, who's joining us from Alice Springs. Almost see you, Denise. We're talking about what are the top three.
I got my times mixed up, Tom.
Happens.
Sorry, I'm here now. Hello, everybody.
Because you're on a different time. You're on a central time. Sorry,
we're on a different planet here.
I'm so glad that you're with us. Thinking about the top risks, top three for anybody's organisation. Who wants to have a go at this?
For us, I think number one is funding. Revenue. I'm going to call revenue because it doesn't have to be funding, but revenue.
Yeah. Getting the money in.
Yeah.
Keeping it.
I would say, sorry.
Go, Charlene, that's all good.
I would say another big one is staff burnout and the risk that the work presents psychologically to them.
Yes,
Yeah.
getting the staff, keeping them well, looking after them, hoping they'll stay, all those things that you can relate, wave, relate, that sort of thing. And let's find another one. Is there another one that's up there in the top three? Go, Denise.
Governance.
Yes. What specifically about the governance is a risk for you?
I guess it's that they know what they're doing and that they know what their job is and they know what the line in the sand is, and then that's my job.
Yeah.
That line in the sand for me is critical.
So being clear about the roles for the CEO and the roles for the board. Yeah, everybody playing their part. Because sometimes boards can put quite a lot on the CEO and sometimes The opposite is true. The board takes on so much and doesn't then delegate and share it with the CEO. So that can be a real, yeah, good one, Denise. That's excellent.
Delegation, you need proper delegation.
Yeah, at the moment, for every organisation that we are talking to, gaining and maintaining accreditation is a bit like a life or death matter. Like, that sounds pretty serious, but like, if you don't get accreditation and maintain accreditation, you're not going to get your funding. So it's kind of, you know, it's up there, isn't it, in terms of a risk for an organisation. And because that deadline is looming, Denise, I'm talking to some New South Wales people where they all have to be ASIS accredited by June next year. If they haven't started now, the risk for their organisation is they actually won't get there. So they can't, you know, recommission or commission. Yeah. So that's the sort of stuff we're talking about. Now, they are the high-level risks that I often would not see on a risk plan. On a risk plan, I mostly see things like physical risks, slips, trips, falls, incidents, accidents, violent clients, car accidents. Real, right? But not the sort of thing that would definitely close an organisation. You see? So I'm glad that we've put our heads in the space of the high-level risks here. The thing that I'm giving you to help you with thinking broadly about all the risks is this document here, which I suppose without explanation could be quite overwhelming. So I'm glad you're joining me to sort of have a look at it together, because it's called My Sample Risk Categories and Risk Examples. Now, this was developed with an Aboriginal community-controlled health organisation that works in a remote location. So it's very detailed, all right? So, but it takes account of everything. So you could use this list as not so much a checklist, but something to have a look at and say, would that be relevant to us? So let me just find my down, there we go. So look on the left-hand side here, the risk categories: financial, organisational, legal, operational, commercial. So this is an organisation that has a, what do you call the social ventures? Social enterprise. Safety for their workers, strategic, equipment, because they use a lot of equipment, security, reputation, on and on it goes. So these are their categories. All right, so when we brainstorm the different risks, over a couple of days we did this with lots and lots of people on their team, and we brainstormed all of the risks on the right-hand side, and then we categorised them. So that's the way we did that. So, you know, I think use this to check on whether any of those things are risks for you. That's something that we will be sharing with you. But the important thing is, I think when you're identifying risk, is to, you know, go wide, and then you get to a point where you're assessing the level of risk for each of those. So, you know, we're not going to be going into detail in this workshop about all that there. That's a whole other day if you want to learn about how to do risk management. We're more talking about what does a service excellence require of you. So we'll have a look at that specifically. But what is a risk and what are the risk categories? That's really up to you as an organisation, but there are some general ones you could look at, like governance, HR. You could look at financial. You could look at service delivery. You could look at IT. You could look at partnerships and collaboration, right? So you start to develop some very broad categories. The sample risk plan that we give you has got some broad categories on it. All right. In the service excellence standards, it says that you need to have a system for managing risk. Now, what is a system? Now, I'm going to go through this quickly because sometimes there are people in the room who've heard me bang on about what is a system before. So I'm going to go through this very quickly, but I will ask you to pick up a pen and a piece of paper and draw it along with me, because then we know we get it into the brain. And I'll show you what I want you to draw. I don't think this will be any secret to Denise, because I think she's seen me draw this before, but the same is true. There you go. Can you see that? I want you to draw something that looks like that. This is a system. So there's 5 circles on the outside of one circle. And in the middle circle, we're going to write risk management, because we're having a look right now at our system for managing risk. So I'm writing in the middle, risk management. And there's a few interconnected parts when we're managing risk in an organisation. That's why we're calling it a system. All right. So if we're managing risk well, and we have a risk management system, then 5 things will be present, and I will clearly be able to see them as your assessor, if I'm your assessor. The first thing I'll see is that you've documented it. So you've written down, so your first bubble, you have a D for documented. So round the back, so round the wrong way, D for you, but DOC I might put in that one, documented. So everything to do with risk is documented, written down. Policies, procedures, risk plans, right? It's not in someone's head, no matter how small you are. If I'm talking to you and you're saying, but I'm only a part-time coordinator in a community centre, doesn't matter. Nobody does risk management on their own. Therefore, it should be documented, because other people will need to know it. They'll need to see it, and you'll need something you can pick up and review. So everything to do with risk should be D for documented. Next bubble, and I will see this, everything that's written down will be I for implemented in practice, okay? So don't just have a document, but that's not what you do, that's just how we wrote it, and this is what we do over here, completely different. You need to have all your documents saying what you do and all your people doing what your document says. All right, sometimes there's a disconnect between those two. You know why? Because people take shortcuts, documents don't get updated, all that there, right? Do your best. So I will see the things in the document actually being done. So for example, if you say, oh, and the board will review the risk management plan every 12 months, then I will see a minute from a board meeting that says we reviewed the risk plan, for example, and I will see the risk plan updated. Those sorts of things show me that it's implemented. The next one is C. The next bubble has a C in it, C for communicated. So all of that happens around managing risk in your organisation, all that happens around managing risk in your organisation needs to be shared with all the people who need to know and understand. So how do we communicate that we want people to do this to be safe? How do we communicate that we want people to do that audit? You know, how do we communicate what people need to do about reporting to funders? How do we communicate all that? Usually policies, procedures, usually induction, training, those sorts of things. All right, so people need to know. So if I interview your staff and I say, oh, what are you doing around here to kind of manage risk around visiting clients? Them to tell me how they do that. Not, oh, I'm just really careful when I go there and, you know, like I ring before I go. No, it needs to sort of be like, what happens? Is there a risk assessment for the house? Is there a set of behaviours that you always implement? Do you have to ring and let your boss know or your team leader know when you're leaving or when you're going home from that house? Da-di-da, right? All that there. So we have to communicate ways that people can know and understand all the things to do with managing risk. So usually it is some training, ongoing training, a very good induction, those sorts of things. What's the next bubble everybody wants to know? It's a D4. Anybody want to guess? D for Denise? No.
I don't know. I
D
don't know.
for-
D for Denise.
D for delegated.
Oh, delegated.
Yeah, everything to do with risk and how it gets done. Everybody has a role. So everything that's happening around controlling risk in your organisation needs to be delegated to someone who knows how to do it. If you don't, and they know it's their job and it's maybe in their job description and it's definitely in the delegations register to say that the CEO will every 6 months do a site inspection to make sure that the site's physically safe, whatever. Everything to do with risk management must be delegated to someone, because if it's not, it won't get done. It won't get done. It needs to be formally delegated usually. It can be delegated in the plan. That's fine too. If you're a small organisation and you want to say, oh, we're going to do some safety checks every 3 months, then put next to it who's going to do it. That's a form of delegation. It doesn't have to be a big delegation of authority register. unless you're big. Then it probably does. Okay. And the last one starts with E, and it's usually the one that most systems are weak in this area. Starts with anybody.
Evaluation.
Woo, Denise, I knew you'd jump in there, girl. You love to win a quiz, don't you? Evaluated. A good system is regularly monitored to see if it's working, to see if everything we said we wanted to do around risk management is actually happening, or is it too hard? Have we communicated this in a way that people don't really understand? I did meet one organisation once. They were on the large side, maybe 60 staff and a few sites and lots of programs. And they had a risk management system that was worthy of BHP. It was so far outside of the realm of understanding for most people in the organisation. It was really owned by the compliance team, and that's where it stayed. And risk management became their job, and that is not a system. That does not work with risk. That might work with payroll. That does not work with risk. So I say keep it simple, and so system monitoring becomes a little bit easier if you keep it simple. So evaluating our system and seeing if it's working or whether there's any weaknesses means looking at it and going, oh, hang on, of those 5 parts, are we doing that well? Because if you're not doing that well, you don't have a system. Have we documented it properly? Because if you don't do that well, you haven't got a system. So you've got weaknesses. And that process of checking your system, like through audits or however you do it, that process and then improving is called CQI. What does that stand for, anyone? CQI.
Quality.
Something
Continuous quality. And there we go. See? So the effort that we go to monitor our systems and to evaluate whether or not they're effective for us and then make improvements based on that is called continuous quality improvement. So we keep going with that. So that kind of approach is so very important for risk management. Now, we could easily scribble out risk management in the middle there and put anything we wanted. We could put finance. We could put recruitment. We could put consumer engagement, anything in there, and we could build a system around it, okay? So don't be miffed by that. That's not just something to do with risk. That's a system approach to building an organisation, keeping it strong. So think about that with anything. Hello, Sarah. Lovely to have you here. Now, the next thing we should do is have a look at the actual requirements for service excellence, and you will see a lot of that systems language in the requirements. All right, so it's not going to be magical, new and different. It's going to be, oh, that fits quite nicely with that. All right, so should we have a look? I'm opening up the evidence guide, but firstly, I'm going to pop it in the chat for you in case you want to read along with me. So let me just take a minute to pop that in the chat for you. Whoop, whoop. Where do we save it? And there it is. Sorry, my brain's a bit slow. I've been online all day. I know, so I'm not complaining. Hello, Justine. Lovely to have you here. We are just about to have a look at the requirements under the Risk Management Standard 2.4, which sits under governance. What a good place for risk management to sit. And we're going to have a look. There are 8 indicators. I'm on page 31 of that document, by the way, if you're clicking on it and opening it. I'll give you a moment to scroll down a bit. And for anyone who has had a confusion with the time, I'm wanting to apologise, because I think when we're inviting people from other states, we probably should put the other start times in there too. So if that's happened to you, I'm sorry, but you'll be able to watch the beginning as a recording. Saturday night.
Marie, where did you say that document was?
I've just put it into the chat for you.
No, I can't. It's not
Let me-
there.
See if that, why has that not? Oh. Well, I'm going to open it on my screen anyway. We'll have a look at it together and I'll be sure to email this out to you.
Okay, thanks.
Why is that not happening then? It's saying it's there. Is anybody seeing it?
No.
Okay. We'll try that again.
Where did you say it was? In chat, did you say?
Well, it should be appearing down the bottom of the
Yeah.
chat. If you
Yeah.
scroll down, it should appear as a PDF.
No, nothing there. then.
Okay. I'll try one more time. Maybe I need to press enter or something. What about now? Oh, I know what's happening. It's uploading. It's a very big document. So just give it a little moment and then you should see it appear. Hello, Lana. Nice to have you here.
Hello. Sorry, having some computer difficulty.
All fine. It's normal now. We're just about to have a look at the requirements for service excellence under risk management standard. And I'm having a big storm here. I know that my puppy dogs are going to be quivering under my chair. There she is. I knew she'd be under there quivering away.
I think it's on page 28.
Okay. Did you see it there?
No, I'm looking at the book. Yes.
Oh, thank you.
This is what you're loading?
I'm loading the evidence guide, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you go up to the risk management standard, I'm going to bring it up on the screen now anyway so I can talk to it. And so don't worry if you haven't got it there. If you're going through service excellence, you'll definitely have it on your desk close somewhere.
Tied to your leg.
That's it. Tattooed to your arm, that's it. Well, let me just go here, open it up.
There it is. It's there now.
Ah, that just takes a little while when there's a storm around.
Under chat. It's in chat.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. Here you go. Don't worry. That's what it looks like. So I'm just going to go through the 8 indicators and I'm going to give you just at my summary of what we would look for as assessors because you can read the rest. But I want to give you, the best sort of guidance, if you like, without getting bogged down in all these words here. And I'm going to do it from a bare minimum approach. So it will work for whether you're a small organisation or whether you're starting out or whether you think you've got something too comprehensive and you want to come back to simple. The best thing about having a good risk management system is that people can relate to it, like they can enjoy to come to it and review it and update it and they don't look at it and go, oh, too hard. All right, so the first one is that your risk management system for managing all those categories there, right? So we're going to have to see some attention to human resource risks, IT risks, financial risks, work health and safety risk, all right? So that's a really good indicator of the range of categories that you want to document risks around. So we want to see that you've got all your risks identified and documented in something that's like a risk management plan. All right, so don't get confused at this stage with the lingo. A risk management policy is the document that says this is how we do it. A risk management plan is the thing that lists all the risks, gives them a level, high, medium, low, if you like, and gives it a control, which is the things we're going to do to minimise that risk on our organisation, right? That's the plan. I'm going to show you one in a minute. A risk register, unless you're a big organisation and you are carrying a lot of, let's say, financial risk or project risk or compliance risk, I wouldn't worry about a risk register. A risk register takes the high and extreme risks and puts more of a focus on them so that the board just looks at the high and extreme risks. All right, so they would have a register. Sometimes it's a physical register and it has a template in there, risk number 1, funding risk, and all the things that are going to be happening around that. And they would probably review that at most of their board meetings. Okay, but if I'm working from the bare minimum, you're going to have a risk management plan that lists all your risks and what you're doing about it. You need to show us that you have a review cycle, like that you regularly or periodically have a look at the risks and see that the level is the same or the levels come down, which is a great scenario, isn't it? And that the controls that you've put in place are effective, continue to be effective. All right, so that's a review cycle. For a small organisation, that should happen, I would say, at least every 6 months. All right, you can do it more regularly than that, but I would say at least every 6 months, the board should be looking at that risk plan and saying, is this still, is this current? Is this where we are right now? What do we need to change? Right, that's the big one. That's the area that most organisations would have a gap in, sadly. So at the very minimum, have your risk management policy documented and have a risk management plan. See this number 2, the indicator number 2 here, risk management systems are being communicated to all the staff and relevant stakeholders. So all the people who need to know about how you manage risk, because they're participating in helping to keep you safe, they need to know. So this is why we do inductions. This is why we have contractors coming on site. We let them know how they can be safe at our site. This is how we let our staff know. This is our policy for home visits, or this is our driving the car policy. All right, we communicate it. Training, induction, policies, procedures. The next one, there are 8 of these, by the way, if you're thinking, when will it end? When does it ever end? This is the one that's got the most. No, the HR standard has got the most indicators at 10, but this has got a few. This has got 8. Business-related incidents, accidents, near misses, all that there. So this is your incident management system. So it says that all of those incidents need to be recorded, reported, investigated, and include engagement with staff and consumers to look for risk management improvements. All right, most organisations have real strength in this area. They have an incident register. They have, obviously, they have their incident management system documented in a policy procedure. They have a way of maybe bringing the opportunities for improvement from the incident to a team meeting. All right, so most organisations would have this in place. I hope you're getting some ticks already. You're sort of thinking to yourself, yep, we've got that. This part here, which is part of the previous one, I want to bring your attention to that because a lot of organisations maybe leave this off. This is the E for evaluation, and that system we talked about before. Incidents are analysed regularly at all levels of the organisation to identify trends and to review for action. So when you have a look at incidents over time, incidents, accidents, near misses, it'll start to tell you a story, yes? The data always starts to tell you a story, and it's telling you a story about risk. I did visit an organisation once, and I could tell that they had a look at their incident register for a long time. Because over time, and I was looking at maybe a two-year period, I was seeing maybe 15 needle stick injuries. Right, so this is a clinic. 15 needle stick injuries over a 2-year period. Like, that's sort of serious, isn't it? In another organisation, I saw a lot of little bingles, like, vehicle bingles. And I was thinking, oh, that's something that's trending towards an accident. So unless you're having a look regularly at your incident register and looking at what the story is around risk for you, that can be, as valuable as just putting stuff on a bit of paper. Incident management system, unless you're analysing it for trends, it's not valuable at all. other than for compliance. So to keep people really safe, you need to be looking at the trends. Okay, so that's incidents. So that's 1, 2, 3. 4, clinical risks are identified. Now, this has always been a curly one for us as assessors and for organisations to understand about clinical risk. Now, you would think it's to do with having doctors and other people who are clinical practitioners, yes? And you would say, oh, that's not us. But in actual fact, it's to do with physical harm. I had to clarify this myself with the ACES team. So it is things like slips, trips, falls, cuts, anything that would break the skin. It's also to do with like biological things. That includes COVID in here. All right, so anything that could cause people physical harm should be thought of as a clinical risk. And it's specifically, so it's been separated out as a clinical risk because of its, I suppose, acute kind of danger to possibly children or visitors to your space or clients, yeah? So you see there's a list here that sort of explains it. Anything to do with blood, yes, all that there. It's a pretty good list. It gives you an idea. So you need to have some pretty good policies and procedures around being able to minimise the risk associated with clinical risk. Okay.
Marie, I noticed they don't have in there the risk of assault by the clients or customers that you work with. Is that somewhere else, or?
Well, yes, I would include that in either service delivery risk or physical risk in my risk plan.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely include that because that's real. I would usually see it included in service delivery or program risk, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Number 5 is that responsibility for assigning the risk is managed. So what this means is that someone is delegated responsibility for managing the risks, meaning if you've got a risk plan and you've got, well, this is our risk and this is what we do about it, then we should have it delegated to someone to do it. So oftentimes I see in a risk plan that they'll have a very good list of all the risks and an excellent list of all the controls to minimise the risk. But then those controls are not delegated to anybody. They're just there, you know, just, oh yeah, look at all this we're going to do. We, who's a we, right? Most of the we's around here are all very busy doing their own jobs. So, you know, it should be delegated whose job it is. And if the CEO has a particular job in terms of updating the risk plan or an operational risk, then it should be in the CEO's job description. If the board have a responsibility for developing the risk plan and all that there, then it should be in their governance policy that's their role. Okay, but it definitely should be assigned in the risk plan. So good control is only effective if someone's actually going to do it, isn't it? So responsibility for assigning the risk is managed, and that's the delegation of some of those actions in the risk plan. So as at a very minimum, you will be assigning that in the risk plan. That would be fine. As long as we interview that person and they know it's their job. Say, oh, you're the fire warden. And they say, oh, okay. Have you had any training? Oh, no, but I'd love to. No, that won't work. Okay. Oh, can you hear that thunder? Oh, dear. I don't know what I'm worried about. I'm not worried. The dog's worried. Number 6, nearly there, everyone. Just like to welcome Kay. Hello, Kay. Thanks for joining us. Number 6 is all significant projects and purchases have appropriate risk management strategies. Now, some of your projects and purchases will, by their nature, have a certain level of risk around. Right, so I'm thinking of the risks that might be associated with purchasing some play equipment for the backyard in your refuge, or I'm thinking about a project that might be about buying a house, or it could even be developing a partnership with a real estate agent or something like that. All right. So it's a sort of one-off, discrete kind of a happening in your organisation. It's not part of your usual program. It's a project, or it's an outside of budget purchase. Right? So it has certain risk attached to it. And oftentimes what we see is that that risk is not presented to the board who might be making a decision about it. So the board might get 3 quotes, lovely, and they might get a project outline, lovely, but the board can't really make a decision about it until they're presented with the risk. Right, so that might be a bit of an assessment of the level of risk and how we're going to reduce the risk and all that there. All right, so we would look for evidence in the board meeting minutes. If your organisation decides to run an event, like a fundraising event, and invite the public to a particular place, there's going to be risk around that. Right, so we are sharing with you a resource which is called a one-off sort of event or project risk management plan. It's a very simple sort of an assessment to do with that kind of risk. Right, that's another area where we often find a gap. Right, but we don't overthink this. We just want to see that there's been some thought to risk given in the decision-making process. Often see that CEOs do prepare a business case, but it often doesn't include a risk assessment. Number 7 is about audits. Audits, if we're having a look at this again, if you've missed this before, sorry, this is a bit of a teaser now, isn't it? We had a look at a system for managing risk. And when we got up to evaluate it, a really good way to evaluate your system is to undertake an audit, which is another word for monitoring the system. Having a bit of a look at how well that system is functioning. And so we sometimes find in organisations that they do these kinds of audits. They will do site inspection, walking around, seeing that the site is safe. They'll do test and tag. They will do client file audits. They'll do HR file audits. And they might do a compliance audit against the requirements of their, however they're constituted. So the Associations Act, for example. Yeah, they might do that. So in the context of risk management, audits are the things that tell you that all those controls that you put in your risk plan are in place and effective. And there's really no other way of knowing unless you're going to go around and have a good look or do some monitoring. So audits in the context of this is about checking that the controls that you have in place to minimise your risk are implemented and effective. So I do read a lot of risk plans that have been developed in a state of excitement, and there will be, 20, 30 controls for each risk, which is just fabulous. Just fabulous. But then realistically, are they all implemented? Mostly not. Mostly not. They're aspiration. Okay, so I think that's the trickiest part of this standard, is showing that you're checking to see that your controls are in place and effective. And that's why the review of the risk plan is important, because there are some things in there you're not checking, you don't know. So maybe don't put them in there. And the last one, this is the one, it's the BCP. BCP, yeah, you know me, the BCP. Never tire of that K, do you? The organisation's core functions, critical systems, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it means if you want to stay in business, which you are required to do in your service agreement, most of you, because you are essential services, very important to the clients that you serve, you need to have a way of showing how it is that you will continue to operate through the worst of days. The worst of days. You've had them already, haven't you? The worst of days.
Oh, God, yes.
Yes, right. So your business continuity plan is, how are we going to keep our doors open to our clients, even though we would, if we have the worst of days? All right. What do they say? Expect the best, plan for the worst. So you are writing down the things that you absolutely need to run your service. Now, let's have a think on this. What are the things you absolutely need to run your service? Absolutely.
A space.
Say again. Building.
If your building has been destroyed, you need space.
Yeah. So you need a building to run your service, right? There's a whole heap of things that could happen to your building. Most of you would need some pretty amazing staff to run your service, yes? So if anything happened to your key staff, when I say key staff, I don't mean like, they're not all important, but there are some that, for example, you must have one of these in order to keep getting your money, in order to provide a service. Like I'm thinking of a GP, for example, or a particular counsellor, or you're funded for a social worker, that sort of thing, right? Or yes, leave it there. So we need a building. We need some key staff. What else do you need?
Computer.
Denise needs her computer.
I do.
You need a computer. You need your technology, don't you?
Yes, absolutely.
We're reliant on it so much now. And you probably need some money. So you need to be able to get money, pay people, all that there. So if you listed those sort of 4 things as they're like the key things that we need to run our business, I'm calling them, because I'm fancy pants, I'm calling your critical business functions, right? Critical business functions. You've got to list them. What do you critically need to run your business? You've listed them. Now I want you to list all the things that could happen to those there. Right, so we could have a technology fail. We could have, we could be hacked. These are unforeseen things that could happen very suddenly that would mean, oh my goodness, what are we going to do today? We can't provide a service to our clients, that sort of thing, right? Fire, flood, serious storm like I'm having here right now, right? So you list all the things that can happen to those critical business functions. And then you think, oh, okay, if we lost our building, what would we do in order to provide a service to our clients? Now, everybody did one of these during COVID. Everybody did a business continuity plan during COVID. You wrote a plan that said, if we all get taken down, or if even just one person gets taken down, what are we going to do to keep the doors open? So what I'm saying is a business continuity plan, you now need to expand to the whole of the organisation. You just need to have in place some ideas of what steps you'll take to continue to deliver a service. Now that can take any form. I just recently helped a tiny refuge in Moree to develop one. We said, right, what are the things that could stop you from being able to have clients come here? And the first thing out of their mouth was bed bugs. It was hilarious. Because they just had an infestation, so it was top of mind. They went, bed bugs. And I said, oh gosh, yes, okay. So we had bed bugs, we had COVID, we had like a violent person at the door. And then we just said, well, what would we do? How would we assist a woman a woman and her children? If that were happening, what would you do? Oh, we used the motel, or we'd have to use that service over there and they might be able to help her. So they just listed all the things that they would do in those situations to continue to provide the service.
Coralee's got a great story about that. Haven't you, Coralee?
Okay.
About fire?
Handball.
Your story about doing the ironing and seeing the fire?
Yeah, I probably can't say that though. It's a different organisation. That's not a publicly recorded.
She doesn't want to tell. tails out of school.
Sorry.
If we go, but it can happen. It can happen, and you wouldn't be expecting. None of us are expecting COVID, even though we've had pandemic in our risk plans for ever since I became a youth worker. And I've thought, what's pandemic mean? What's that about? What would happen? And we've had bomb threats in there for forever. Never had a bomb threat. You know, like we're not planning, you know, because it's going to happen every day. We're planning because it's going to happen, but it's going to be significant. It could mean we close our doors, which we're really not allowed to do, or we don't want to do, I should say. Yes. So we are giving you a template for a business continuity plan. That's sort of, you know, world's best practice. But really, if you just say, look, these are the things that could happen to us here, because it's very contextual. It's about your environment. So in Moree, we were thinking about floods and extreme heat. Yes, we had a mouse plague there last year that was really, not we, they did, that was really difficult to, you know, some aspects of their work to manage. So it's very contextual, a business continuity plan. And it's usually done by site. So if you've got 3 or 4 sites, I'm not saying you need 3 or 4 BCPs, but it is a good idea to get it done at the site level, right? Because if this refuge goes down, where would the people in that refuge go? You see that? Like if there were a fire at 9 o'clock at night, where will you take people? That needs to be written down. Yeah. Now that is it, right? But it's a big standard. It's a very big standard. The resources that we'll share with you will be helpful, but they are samples only. Please don't think, oh my God, we've got to have this. Just check what you've got against what, you know, we've shared today and what resources we're sharing with you. If you're uncertain, everybody here has using the BNG portal. Share with us your evidence ahead of the assessment and we'll give you some feedback on it. Like if you go, oh, this is our risk evidence, what do you think? We'll tell you if we think that'll get through. I mean, I can't know whether or not you're communicating with your team, but I can have a look at your documents. Questions?
I've got one, but I can wait if everyone else has got.
Wait your turn, Kate.
Yeah, I'll wait my turn.
It's your turn. Go.
Look, I'm sorry, I missed the time.
Apologise. Let's go.
If you've already talked about this, then shut me down. But cybersecurity audits, have you discussed that at all?
No, it's its own standard under information technology, but it does play a role here under that audits indicator that we talked about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it should be explicit. You must. I'm upping that. I'm saying you must do cybersecurity audits of some kind to get through service excellence now.
So are there any guidelines, any templates, anything? Are we talking about external audits?
It doesn't have to be external. You know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing that this is a great topic for our next On the Wire session. We should talk about security. And there
I
are
can talk about it.
requirements.
I can talk about DIFLOG.
Go for it, Denise. What are you using?
Kay, are you an NGO? Are you a charity? What
No,
are you?
I work with Highwire, but
Oh, sorry.
yeah, but I get a lot of questions and
She's doing a lot of service excellence coaching for organisations, so she's in there.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's good. If you're an NGO and you're a charity, which there's got to be a lot of people, organisations around that are classified if you're wearing the badge. If you go onto the ACNC site under their hub, you can get everything from there. You can get safeguarding, you can get cybersecurity, you can get anything about a data breach, all those things. It's all in there. And if you're an NGO and a charity, you're supposed to be adhering to that site. And even though the ACNC has the right to actually ask you for those things that you've done, you know, like your self-assessment, which is all on this site, and be able to produce that for them. So I would say if you're an NGO and a charity, you need to have done all that work on the ACNC side, and that will hold you in very good stead for certification. And there should be no questions. It's very simple, but it's all there.
So is that a self-assessment? I haven't seen that on the ACNC site.
Yes, it is. It's all there. There's a very good self-assessment for your whole organisation.
Yeah.
And there are other ones for cyber security, safeguarding, data breaches. Yeah, I had one other one, but anyway, everything is there.
So yeah, but that's the question, Marie, then is like, is that sufficient to meet
It has to
basic
be
standards?
sufficient because what actually governs an NGO and a charity is what the charity says that you should do.
Yeah.
You're governed by
and that's the reason that it's
organisation.
Yeah. And that's the reason that it's in these standards. These standards are contemporary. They're updated every 3 years in line with the current legal and regulatory environment. So yes, you won't, and we won't get through the assessment without checking that you've got some sort of cybersecurity protection and checking. So again, use your system. We just talked before about what's the system. Put cybersecurity in the centre circle and go around. Is this documented? Have we implemented this? You know, we delegated this. Do we evaluate this? Have we communicated this?
Can I just add one more thing to that? For those of us that are insured through Marsh, they do their own audit that we have to sign off on as to what all our data technology, cybersecurity controls are, what we use internally, what's external, who our service providers are, that sort of thing. So we've done that with our external IT service provider and even looked at some improvements and that's part of our insurance, which also then relates to how much we pay for insurance.
Right.
So
Yeah,
so
if you're using external providers, they can do it for you.
yeah, well, it was combination, but we had to sign off to the insurer of what we had in place. But we do use an external IT provider.
Very good.
So that's just another piece of evidence, I guess,
Perfect.
is your technology insurance.
Yes, yes. We usually find organisations are doing a lot of system monitoring, lots of audits, and we can tease it out of them what you're doing, what you're checking, because usually is more than what organisations realise. So I want to say that sometimes we're getting a little bit of evidence, but once we ask the questions, we find, oh, we're doing lots and lots of different things, like that ACNC checklist there. That's a form of auditing, checking, system checking. So that's what we're looking for. I think that we should use this time next month to talk about cybersecurity because it pops up under the information technology standard.
Yeah.
So, and I've recently heard of some fabulous exemplars. Susan Sampson, who's the head of service excellence, she gave us a list of a checklist of things that organisations should be looking for. Like, have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done this? Have you done that? So that was a really good one that she got from some training that she shared, which I can now share with you. So I think that we should do that next month because that's another of the must-dos in the accreditation. Right, that's it. I think I've gone over my time. I'm very sorry. I don't like to do that, even by 6 minutes. But I'm happy to hear any more questions. It's open. I don't have to close it. I don't have a time limit, but you do. So if I say we are here and we are happy to have any questions at any time with anything to do with service excellence, we are looking to support you. And whatever you need, please ask. We'll see you next month. 2 o'clock's the time. And that will be different in different time zones, which I want to apologise for, which I think caused some confusion today. And let's talk all about cybersecurity next month. What you will find is the recording on Monday and the resources on Monday. And they are, of course, uploaded to our client-only area of our website. Which you will get the password to in case you don't have it. Be good? Everybody wave because it looks so good. Just until I press the off record button. There we go. Oh, keep it going, keep it going.